Welcome to the After Chat. I'm Michael.
I'm Madison.
And today we are going to be talking about fear of failing. There we go. You ready?
I am.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the After Chat. Real questions. Real talk. Real life.
If you could try like an adventurous activity, like bungee jumping, skydiving, like what would it be?
Skydiving. It's I don't think it's officially on the bucket list, but it would be fun.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do bungee jumping because I don't know. You get flung back up.
Yeah.
I don't know. Skydiving seems like a fun experience, though.
I want to do like space travel, like the space tourism, like
Yeah.
where you kind of go like right outside like the upper atmosphere, like kind of low Earth orbit and like see it. Like I want to do
cool.
that. Like I think that would be like super fun and super cool.
Better start saving up now.
I know, right? Like, but I'm hoping one day, like, whenever I'm mega old, like, it will be a lot cheaper, and
Yeah.
maybe my Social Security check and will like cover it.
If you get it.
If that. But like, I'm hoping that will be something I get to do one day.
Yes. Or even just experiencing, I don't know if there's a way to simulate it outside of space, but like experiencing zero gravity,
Yes.
that sounds like so much fun.
No, so there is. Like, I don't know all, like, if a plane goes up high enough at, like, a fast enough speed, like, you can get, like, intermittent periods of, like, 0G.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I want to drink water like an astronaut does.
Yes.
I don't want to be like all the way out in space though, because that sounds too scary.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like drink a bubble of water from
Yeah.
there.
That would be fun.
Be cool.
So, I love this one. Like, if you had to delete all but 3 apps from your phone, which ones would you keep?
I need some clarification here. Are we talking like apps that you download from the App Store or the ones that like come built into the phone like alarms?
Download from the
Okay.
App Store.
That helps. Ooh, this is a good question. Planning Center, because that's my job as technical coordinator, and Planning Center is an app that we use, but also a lot of other churches use for planning services and scheduling people. It'd be a boring app, but it would help me do my job well. No social media. I'm good getting rid of all of those. I might be okay with just
Planning Center?
you talk about your apps.
Okay, so no,
I need to think.
I want my bird feeder app, like, so that way I can access like
Of course.
what's happening there. So I definitely want that one. Like my doorbell app, like my ring alarm app.
That probably would be helpful.
I know I want that. I know I want those two. I'd get rid of social media too. Royal Match. Like,
Sorry.
I
Those ads make me laugh so hard with the king
With the
who's always
king.
like, oh!
yes, no, I love it. I play it nearly every day. So
You got to keep the brain working.
yes.
Exactly, solving problems.
Like, and I've been stuck on a level for like 2 weeks, and like I refuse to spend money like to get like power up things in those games. So
I'm not good at refusing to spend money, so I don't download the apps.
I can't justify it. So like I've been stuck on this level for weeks, but I will win it, and I will win, and I will beat it. But
You'll feel so much accomplishment
Yes.
when you do.
so those are the 3. Want my bird feeder so I can watch my birds. Want my ring alarm so I can see if anything's outside my house. And Royal Match.
I think I would have to add in Google Drive to the mix, but
All these are work apps.
I know. Well,
I would just do it through my computer.
I didn't think of that. Okay, so I was going by priority of apps, of course, because I got to get my job done. But if I can do all that through computer, and we're just talking like basic functional apps or like fun apps, I might keep YouTube. It doesn't count really, in my opinion, as social media. It is a time waster for me, but it's also my favorite way to learn is through video, like watching things instead of reading. So. Yeah, that might actually be fine. I might hang out there.
Okay.
Yeah. I try to not use my phone a lot as is, so it's really like a work tool for me. And I don't have a cool like bird feeder with a camera that has an app. Otherwise, that would probably be on the list too.
Well, there's 3 of us on staff.
I got to join
So
the
you
group,
got to
the
get in
inner
there
circle.
because it is fun.
If I got one that had an app, it probably wouldn't be a hummingbird feeder. Unfortunately, it would probably be like the cameras that you have at home that can watch your pets, and you can like move the camera around to like see where they're at. It might be that. That would be. I think I would have more fun being nosy and seeing what my cats are up to.
All right, so I often wonder. Now I'm wondering what Snowflake's at the house doing, but I mean, 99% chance she's laying on her thing.
She's probably having a great time, just snoozing.
So, what was the last thing you succeeded in that you're proud of?
That's a tough question to answer. Do you have one?
That I succeeded in? I mean, my like some of the teams that I lead yesterday, like as far as like a bunch of work related things, like they're really coming together and like just really pulled off an amazing day. Like we had our baptism service out at our campus yesterday, so
nice.
Like and ours flows like directly from the service into the moment, and just the way that everybody functioned, like it's been really awesome to see like that team of people that I lead like just really do something really amazing for the people that were being baptized, as well as everybody that came to support their friends and family members that were. So I'm really, I'm really like proud of those of the way the team worked yesterday.
Nice, that's awesome. I think I feel like a certain level of pride in succeeding after every Sunday, because that's like the big pinnacle of the week for us here, at least in my role, is pulling off Sunday. If I try and like pull myself away from thinking work world, it's probably little things of like just keeping up with all of the stuff that I have to keep up with to like take care of myself is hard sometimes. And I'm really good at procrastinating. And so I was really late in paying my personal property tax just because I kept procrastinating. And then my registration and inspection. I still haven't gotten my car inspected yet. I have a deadline because I got pulled over and I got a ticket. Don't look at me. It was, okay, they expired in September, so it was pretty bad. We're in April now, so it was rough. I deserved the ticket. But I got everything done except the inspection. So I'm kind of proud of myself for fixing my own mistake. I still have to go to court, to fix it, but yeah.
I mean, it's little wins.
There's a low bar for me sometimes as far as like succeeding.
Well, then let's go to the reverse. What was the last time you failed?
Well, I got pulled over for having expired tags. Yeah. I mean, I think the number one thing that frustrates me, that I feel like there's a source of failure there that happens pretty often, is when I don't get to eating my groceries in time before they go bad.
I hate that.
It's so frustrating.
No, it's waste of money. No, I 1,000% can't stand that.
Like, especially when I like try to buy things. And, like, I try to buy, like, a variety of produce that, like, I know, okay, the apples will last me this week, and next week my fruit will be kiwis, because these kiwis aren't, like, they're not ripe yet, so it'll last me. And then the kiwis just decide to all ripen all at once, and I'm like, too many kiwis, and then I can't eat them in time.
I hate that when it happens with avocados. Like
Oh, yeah.
they're stones.
And they're
one
so
day,
expensive.
Yeah, and then the next day, mush.
Yep.
Like that's extremely frustrating.
What do you keep them stored next to?
I mean, I have like a little bowl, and so like there can be anything could be in there. Like there could be oranges in there could be apples in it, and then there could be avocados, there could be limes. Like all of it goes to the same like fruit bowl.
Well, I know that bananas, like my mom used to tell me that if I wanted an avocado to ripen faster, to put it in a paper bag with a banana, because there was something about, I don't know, the gas that bananas produce helps avocados ripen faster. But then also avocados, I think stored next to each other, they can ripen faster too. So like I learned at one point, I'm learning small things to prevent me from wasting groceries. So like I separate onions and potatoes. I didn't know that like they could make them like make each other go bad faster.
Huh. I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So there's little things that I'm trying, but oh man, when it's like an unopened bag of greens too, and I'm like, I should have eaten those greens.
Yes.
Like it easily could have like sauteed down into like one serving of vegetable, and I still didn't eat it. I just, not only did I waste the food itself, but like all of the packaging and all of the energy used to like get the thing there, like
wasted.
It's so frustrating. It's
So
embarrassing.
my last failure was, I mean, I'm not a handy person. Like, so probably hanging my daughter's shelves in her room, like they had to be redone, like by someone else more capable, because like I just wrecked like that piece of wall that was there, or putting
I've done that before.
Yeah, like which is why like I want all the as seen on TV products to work so perfect, like because those folks, I mean, they're disasters and they've managed to figure it out. But no.
They stop leaks with slapping some tape on there.
Yes.
They know what to do.
I mean, I flex sealed the bottom of a boat and took it out, and that worked. But, yeah.
Pretty cool.
So, but no, the little tool that I had did not help me put the shelves up, and so they had to be redone.
It's unfortunate.
Yes. So that was my last failure. And we want to know what yours is. So, put those in the comments.
And if you eat your groceries on time, I'm impressed.
Yes. So we're gonna do this episode a little different. So we're gonna do like a situation setup.
Yes.
We're gonna look at a couple predicaments that some biblical figures were in, where they had reason to fear failure, or expressed it, or just based on the reading of the text, you can kind of tell by what God's telling them. They were definitely fearful of taking on the task, and so. We see this first. I'm going to kick us off with Joshua. So here it is. So Moses has died. Like he wasn't allowed to go into the promised land because he had did something in some previous chapters. And so God was like, no, you can't go. He did get to see it.
He did.
But he didn't get to go. So picture this. So Joshua, he's stepping into the sandals left vacant by Moses. So he's going to
job.
Yes, he's going to be leading the Israelites into the promised land. So now you'd think a guy in this position wouldn't have an ounce of doubt. Like he'd been mentoring and apprenticing under Moses this whole time. But he clearly didn't. And Joshua, because he's just like the rest of us, he's grappled with fear and uncertainty. And in Joshua chapter 1, verse 9, God's reassuring words to him are kind of like a little nudge. He's like, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. I mean, God's basically just saying, like, dog, like, I've got your back.
Yeah.
Like, you've got this. But despite these words of encouragement, Joshua still faced some doubt. So, I mean, the whole weight of this enormous task is on his shoulders, and he's contemplating the enormity of the task before him, leading this entire nation across the Jordan River into hostile territory. Like, they're going to go straight into combat. Like, everyone knew this was coming. And so God repeats his call for courage, knowing full well what was coming. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give to them. He just keeps giving him this pep talk, but be strong and courageous. God tells him that 4 times in that chapter. Like the opening chapter of the book of Joshua, you hear God you read God say that to him 4 times. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Like, God just doesn't talk to hear himself speak.
Nope.
So, like, I don't think God would have been telling him that many times in that short of space if he didn't know that Joshua feared what he was being asked to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so next up to set the story is Peter. So Peter is, in my opinion, the messiest disciple. And I admire that. I admire his perseverance through some flops.
Yes.
That he encountered, because we've all been there. We've all had a flop or two.
Every single one of us.
So the story in particular that I wanted to set the scene for is the disciples they're on the boat, and so Jesus tells them to get into the boat and to go ahead of them, to go ahead of him, as he is kind of getting the crowd to depart from the message that he just shared with them. So like they're on the boat. Jesus is not with them. He's alone, taking some time to himself, which is a great reminder for all of us. And then Jesus is like, I'm going to catch up with them. And he starts walking across the lake, which is interesting. So they, like, all of the disciples are terrified, and they think that Jesus is a ghost on the water. And Jesus replies to them, and he's like, take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. Be strong and courageous.
Yes.
Jesus, I love that Jesus affirms people's emotions while also pushing them to keep going. So Peter says, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come on the water. And Jesus tells him to come. So he is getting out of the boat, and he's walking on water towards Jesus. And I can imagine the fear of failure in that moment is high. If you think about how weird that experience must have been. Like, Peter experiences something in the Bible here that nobody else, as far as we know of, has experienced. How insane that must feel. Like, his body, I'm sure, immediately went into fight or flight. Like, your brain knows, I'm not supposed to be walking on here. I can't see the bottom of the ocean. There's, possibly, like, movement on the water. I'm not sure of all of the scientific explanations of the lake that they're on, like, how it functions, but I've seen some lakes, and there's some movement there. Like, it would be terrifying.
And, like, how weird must it have felt? And, like, your brain wouldn't be able to reconcile, like, if you go to put your foot on the water and you feel support.
Yeah.
Like,
what does that even feel like? Was the support from, like, the top layer of water, like, or did his feet go in the water a little bit? Like, it's fascinating. But, I'm pretty sure that in his mind right there, stakes were high, and he was scared of failing and possibly drowning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the next one, Ananias. Now, there's 3 Ananiases. Anani.
We don't know.
However you want to pluralize it. But there was 3 of them. And we're going to look at the one from Acts 9. So this guy must have been, I could just imagine what it was like to hear through the grapevine that Saul was now, like, this guy that this chief dog Pharisee, like, had converted to becoming a follower of Jesus. And so think about it. Like, I mean, Saul wasn't just a random dude. Like, he was the big bad wolf of persecuting Christians, like, held the coats and affirmed, like, the stoning of Stephen and all of that. And
chased
suddenly,
them down, sought them out, all that.
And then suddenly he's claiming to be one of them. So it's no wonder Ananias felt like he was walking on eggshells here, because fear of the unknown was probably, like, the biggest monster. Like, what am I getting ready to go into? What if Saul was faking it? What if it was all just a plot to weed out more believers? And let's not forget the very real fear of retaliation, because associating with someone someone like Saul would have painted a giant target on Ananias's back. And so there's this tension between wanting to believe the best in people, because he just got told, go, told by God, like, go lay hands on Saul and restore his sight. Like, that was the task. Like,
That's scary.
Like, that's it. Like, you're just chilling, hear from God, go lay hands on Saul. He's at this dude's house. Go lay hands on him and restore his sight.
Very high stakes.
Like, that's like a crazy fear that you would have to face right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
man,
that's that one.
Oh man. Okay, the next one up is a grouping. So we'll see how Aaron and her kind of play into this story later. But for right now, we're going to talk about Moses. So they kind of just got through a rough situation in the desert. I'm imagining that Moses is a little bit at his wit's end with them. Earlier in this chapter 17 of Exodus, Moses cries out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They are ready to stone me." So, Moses is going through it, and then, in the middle of all of that chaos, the Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites. So Moses says to Joshua, this is when Joshua is still his number 2, choose some of our men to go out and fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands. So they went and fought, and Moses and Aaron and Hur are at the top of the mountain nearby, or on top of the hill nearby, and they're basically watching this happen. They're people actively fighting, being attacked, engaging in combat, and Moses has the staff of the Lord with him, and he notices that when he holds his hands up with it, that they're doing a little bit better, and then his arms start to get tired. So what's going to happen if he has to rest his arms? They start doing worse. So he's realizing, he's piecing it together, that his action of faith in God, by holding his arms up and holding the staff, is directly influencing the battle that they're fighting in front of him. And I can imagine that's a lot of pressure on him, and his arms are probably hurting.
Probably gonna get
It's like
tired.
the classic science, I don't know if you ever got taught this in school, but I was taught the concept of weight being you're holding a glass of water. It doesn't weigh that small, but the longer that you have to do it, the heavier that it feels. And the heavier, the harder your muscles have to work for it. Can't remember what was the point of that object lesson in science, but I remember being taught that if you try and hold something for a really long time, it's going to start to feel heavier.
Yes.
So I can just imagine the shaking muscles and the fear of, these are my people and this is helping them, and I'm hurting and I can't keep this up anymore.
So,
scary.
and so now we're going to look and see how these people got through that. So let's shift gears and talk about how Joshua overcame his fear here. So in a couple chapters later, like we was in chapter 1, and then here in chapter 10, after a series of victories against some of the armies that they went up against, we see Joshua boldly start to seize the moment. And Joshua said to the people, "Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, be strong and courageous. This is what the Lord will do with all the enemies that we are going to fight." It's like he's channeling the same strength and confidence that God instilled in him, and then passed it along to his troops to rally them and give them that
awesome.
confidence. So it's about taking what God gave to him and then pouring it into the people that he was leading.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
And like I never really picked up on that until I was like prepping for this. And you know, another one of his triumphs over fear came later on in chapter 23, where he reflects on God's faithfulness throughout their journey. One of you routs 1,000 because the Lord your God fights for you, just as He promised. Here, Josh was acknowledging that their success isn't rooted in their own strength or strategy, but in the faithfulness of God. So it's just a powerful reminder that even in our moments of doubt and fear, God is always at work, leading us forward with grace and courage. And it also highlights the importance of reflecting back on ways that God was faithful to you and saw you through whatever it was that you were facing. So that was, but the first point that I made about him, you know, giving that same advice to his people that God had given to him. Really jumped out there.
That's cool. That's really awesome. Yeah. I hadn't pieced that together before either. And I love that thought of like, that almost feels like some of the stuff that I've experienced with when I know that God is using me to say just the right thing to someone. And I'm like, it's not, I don't think it's like I'm not aware of what's going on. I think I am, but I'm also acutely aware of like the Holy Spirit is speaking through me right now. And I am just excited to take a back seat and see what happens here. Like it's just cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll cut back to Peter, who has just gotten out of the boat. Scary, terrifying. Peter does fail. He does. He takes his eyes off of God. So I'm gonna pick up again in verse 29 of Matthew 14. So the Lord has just told Peter to come onto the water. Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached down his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" So he, despite his failures in the moment, cried out to God. He knew he had his faith solidified in him to a certain extent, to where he was still able to say, "Lord, save me," even though he got distracted. And I think that's really, I mean, it's understandable. I think...
Who amongst us hasn't experienced that?
Yeah, I think self-preservation skills in dangerous situations do kick in. But he didn't win that fight, and he let himself doubt. But he also has this fantastic story of never letting his failures stop him. There's so many situations in the Gospels where Peter is questioning or called out in some way or doubting in some way.
Or overzealous in others.
Yeah, like Jesus at one point calls him Satan and says, "Get behind me," because he's just not thinking before he speaks sometimes. Again, we've all been there. But he has this long story and legacy of not letting his failure stop him. And he says, "Lord, save me." And he just gets back up. It's cool.
And lastly, we'll finish up with Ananias. And I love this because here's where like the plot twist for him comes in. Like, instead of letting fear call all of the shots and him not going, because the stakes for failure could have had like huge ramifications for him, his family, his friends, and all of this stuff. But it's like he had this unwavering belief in God's plan, even if he couldn't see it. Yeah. And so like I started thinking, well, what scriptures would Ananias have had at his disposal that would have propelled him to keep moving forward? And so I kind of thought, I mean, here's this guy that gets this crazy thing, like, go put your hands on this dude that's been persecuting and running roughshod all over the place, persecuting and killing and all these fellow believers. And then he gets this crazy task, go lay hands on him. I could just imagine him like heading to town or wherever he was going, saying, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight," from Proverbs 3. 5 and 6. I can almost hear him muttering that as he's heading to go do this, because this is such a weird, like, out of the box, crazy request that he was given. And it's just this reminder that sometimes we don't need to have all of the answers, and all we need to do is take that leap of faith and trust that God's got it under control. And I mean, there it paid off, like, big time for Ananias, and he must have felt like he was walking on water when Saul's sight was restored, and he got to see that transformation in the power of the Holy Spirit and God firsthand.
Wow!
So I thought that was, I was just trying to think, what would he be?
Yeah.
What would he have to lean on during that?
Yeah, and I mean, man, I'm sure, like, there are so many Proverbs and Psalms too that, like, are so useful for situations like that, to just kind of, like, have them on the ready in your mind to be able to confront that doubt and that fear in the moment. There's so many good ones, but that's why I love breath prayer a lot, is that it's quick and easy, and it's something that you can memorize and have on the ready. I think I've mentioned before, my favorite one here is when I breathe in, I say in my mind, the Lord is my shepherd. And then as I breathe out, I say, I shall not want. And it's just become, like, just part of my rhythm of daily life, to where,
But that's where it's really important to have some scripture that you lean on.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he did that. I'm just, like, I kind of read that into it and was just trying to put myself there.
Well, yeah.
And so, but
I think that's a good... It makes sense that if we don't know what he could have had aiding him, other than the scriptures and his personal relationship with God, that he clearly was in tune with both of those things, because we know how important they are. We do actually have one more, so I want to circle back to Moses. So he will basically, like, he's on the hill. His arms are tired. So they try a couple different things. So I'm going to pick up in verse 12 of Exodus 17. So when Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And then Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with a sword. And then the Lord said to Moses, write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. So I think that's really cool, because that's, like, the number one instance that in the Bible that I can think of your close inner circle.
Yes.
Directly impacting the way that you can take on a situation. They gave him backup that he couldn't have kept his arms up the entire time. Like, I couldn't. I couldn't keep my arms up, especially, like, holding a staff. I don't know how much their staffs weighed at the time, but I can imagine.
I imagine they were something.
You know, it was at least like a small branch. Like, there's something there in your arm that's heavy, and also just the action of keeping your arms up the entire time. I don't think, no matter how much adrenaline is running through me, I could make it that long. So.
No, and I remember, like, as a form of mass punishment, whenever I was in the military, like, you would have to go out and hold your weapon up over your head.
Oh.
Like, and they would just kind of walk the ranks and just berate
that
everybody.
Sucks. That sucks. Man.
That was good times.
Man. Yeah, so you know that pain.
No, it's
firsthand.
Awful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the way that story wraps up with community and inner circle helping him is just really beautiful.
No, and that's one of the reasons that the church is so important for so many people, and for so many reasons, is, like, that's where you can go to.
Yeah.
Like, you can go to your your fellow followers of Jesus. You know, we're called to bear each other's burdens.
Yeah.
And we literally saw a practical, literal representation of that there.
Yeah.
But that's like you just said, that's so important for your community and your group of folks.
I think it also shows too, like, a united faith of it wasn't just about what Moses could do. It was about the fact that he had faith in God interacting in these circumstances and protecting the Israelite nation. And Aaron and Hur had faith as well. So when they recognized the pattern that was happening of Moses being able to raise his hand up and it helping the army, they didn't, write it off as something like coincidental. They believed him, and they believed what they saw, and they believed God, and they were all united in their faith to the point where they were able to get out of that attack in a way, just in a way where they were able to support each other. And if either of them had maybe not been in tune with that situation or with what Moses needed from them, it might have ended differently. We don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's cool.
All right, so we're going to pick up this conversation right after this clip.
Now, there's more to this story, and some of you know the story, and some of you are thinking right now about the part of the story that everybody just goes to. I mean, I've even done this many times. We don't really think about Peter walking on the water. We think about Peter falling. Because the next thing that happens after Peter walks on the water is he takes his eyes off of Jesus, right? And he looks at the stuff in the water, and then he sinks, and Jesus has got to rescue him. Seriously. Why is it that we skip the part before Peter sinks that he's actually walking on water first? This is convicting for me, as much for me as anybody. You know who skips the part about Peter walking on the water and goes straight to the sinking part? Boat people. Boat people. There were 12 people in the boat. Peter gets out. There are now 11 people in the boat, watching Peter take courage and walk on the water. Peter's the only one that gets out. The invitation, the implication that Jesus has in his invitation, it's open to all 12 of them. Everybody should have got out of the boat. They should have a water walking party happening right now. But it's just Peter. And there's a huge contrast between these two groups of folks.
I love the different groups, boat people.
Yeah, boat people.
People that stayed in the boat.
I probably would be a boat person.
And so, I love the way that he separates and makes that point, though. Like, it's not. I mean, yeah, Peter was still fearful, like anybody would have been, but he was willing to act in spite of it. And even if he did take his eyes off Christ momentarily, I mean, we gloss over the fact that he was walking on water. Yeah. And go right to the failure. I think that says something about humanity more than anybody else.
It's hard for us to acknowledge like a moment of triumph when it is like directly linked to a struggle as well. But yeah, I mean, he failed, but also
he walked on water,
and he kept going as a disciple.
Yeah. And so and that was a public, thing, but he, like you said, he still kept going. And so, I mean, I was able to think about times where I've had to do that. There's also times where I've given in to fear of trying something because I thought I was going to fail. And I'm sure, I know that I'm not the only one that's ever experienced that. But I do know, like, whenever, like when I first was coming out of like my PTSD depression struggles, like my fear of like people like knowing like who I really am, like who I actually am, and then being rejected for it. Like that was something that kept me, like to me that would have been a failure, and that could have prevented me from doing things, and it did for a really long time. And so one of the ways that I overcame that was once I started like doing breath prayers, like God brought me here, God will see me through. Or for me, imagining like what the worst possible outcome would be.
Yeah.
And then saying, okay, well, could I survive that? Yes. Okay, well, then I'll keep going. So, those are some tools that I used and started implementing to first just literally get me out into the world, because I kind of self-isolated for such a long time. And like, if anybody ever needed a reminder that, not to self-isolate because bad things happen, like when you do that, here's your reminder, don't self-isolate, because no good comes from it. Like it didn't for me.
You might get to catch up on some sleep, but you're going to feel
Yes.
worse at the end of the day.
So don't self-isolate.
Yep.
It takes one to know one.
Yep.
So don't do it. But like, and then for me, it was basically, I think a term for it is like cognitive behavioral therapy, where you just kind of expose yourself to a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And so that is what I basically had to do. Like, it started out as like small things, like talking to people that I do know whenever I would go to the grocery store, instead of dipping around another aisle, so that way I wouldn't have to interact like with people, or like going to church and like talking to folks, or like taking baby steps at some of my girls' sporting events and like acknowledging other people that were there, or trying to have a conversation with folks. Like, all of those were little things that I did to overcome like that deep sense of failure, that if people knew me, like, they would just reject me out of hand.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
What has been like your experience with this?
I think I haven't really experienced much fear of failure, I think, right now in my particular set of circumstances. I think that I have some fear of upcoming. So I'm engaged. I've talked about it before, and I do have some fear over like just how big of a decision that is, of like signing up for potentially really negatively impacting my kids in the future if like our marriage is unhealthy or something like that. So I'm starting to remind myself of some of the tools that I used to use, and before it was a lot of when I was leading worship, a lot of the fear was just like messing up in front of people, and like musically or vocally, like messing up or like not getting a transition right. Small things that like I know don't really matter, but in the moment, like when you are in front of people and you're trying to pursue your calling and do what you feel like God is telling you to do, and the stage fright sets in, it's really just like I would prepare ahead a lot. So that looks like in this season right now, like I am trying to prepare for marriage by like looking up resources and tools and things like that to like make sure that I'm going into that decision understanding how to be the best version of myself and the best spouse and all of that. At the time I was just practicing and like I would play through the full worship set that we were doing just on my own and have like a moment of like, God, I know that this Sunday somebody's going to experience you. Don't let my fear, don't let my insecurity like keep that from happening. And then I would also just identify like what is it exactly that I'm nervous about? Like, what am I scared of failing about? And is there anything in that fear that is not rooted in reality?
Yes.
And like kind of picking it apart and identifying what is the actual situation or negative impact, whatever it is that I'm scared of. And so I'm kind of revisiting that now in my current situation with like, what am I really scared of? Is it that I won't get something right, or is it that I am going to be pushed to be like authentic in a completely different way? Like, so it's new experiences and identifying like it makes sense that I would be concerned or acknowledge the fact that there's a new season coming my way, but the reality is like I know that God will equip me with what I need because he has promised me that, and I know that regardless of what happens, regardless of if there are screaming kids eventually one day and I get overstimulated and I might not be the kindest version of myself, that God will give me what I need. Like, he will strengthen my emotional reserve to like equip me to handle whatever situation I'm in. So it's really just identifying what's actually a lie and then speaking truth to what is not true.
Well, the screaming kids and not being the best version of yourself, that'll happen.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
I can
happen.
promise you that. That's
Oh, yeah.
happened to every parent from now to whenever.
Yep.
Like, that will happen. But I think you hit on something that was really, that's really helpful and could be very beneficial for people. And it's that doing that self-inventory and being, I mean, I like to think of it as like brutal self-honesty.
Yeah.
About what exactly am I feeling? And is it actually true? And, you know, it's important to do that stuff on your own and be able to tell yourself hard truth about yourselves, because that's something that a lot of people do struggle to do.
Yeah.
And then also, like, I think to help identify, like, is something real or, you know, is based in reality or a lie, like having somebody to go through that with.
Yeah.
I mean, we did a episode not too long ago about, you know, talking through things with someone and finding someone that can help listen, that can help you by just listening.
Yeah.
And asking probing questions, but giving somebody permission to come into that space, like that was something that was absolutely terrifying to me.
Oh, yeah.
Way back in the day, like, and just being honest with myself and then allowing other people to be honest with me. And I mean, if I'm being real, like that sometimes can still be a struggle, because I think that's probably a struggle for everyone.
Yeah.
But doing that self-inventory and saying, why am I feeling this way? And being honest with yourself about why.
Yeah, I think there's also something to be said for reminding yourself of, if in the situation that everything does fall apart, or if in the situation where I do, from my perspective, fail in some way, that those circumstances have happened in my life before. I've had relationships fail. I've had decisions that I've made fail. I've made really, really, really dumb decisions. But in those situations, there's always an outcome that is worked for my benefit by
Yes.
God, of like, I won't be stuck in the negative of whatever happens. Yeah, we have to deal with our own consequences, of course. And we have to have a reason to, like, we have to make good decisions. We can't just, like, lean on, God will work it for my favor.
Yes.
But,
And
like,
then just go out there blundering about.
yeah, but, like, we can still hold on to, I need to do the best that I can with the circumstances that I have. But even if it completely falls apart, I know that whatever God has next around the corner will be exactly what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good spot to land.
Yeah.
So we hope that you've enjoyed this conversation. If you leave us a review, we will send you a mug. Find us in our Facebook group, and like, share, subscribe, share this with your friends, and we'll see you back here for another episode of the After Chat next week.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for the After Chat. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To be the first to hear our next episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button and get notifications for new content. You can also follow us on social media on Instagram at PCC Wired and Facebook at Passion Community Church. For additional resources and links, check out the description. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on The After Chat.